here with the Boston Terrier Society. In today's episode, I have the owner of the Canine Virtual Academy with me. Her name's Mary Beth, and she actually is able to train your dog virtually, which is great because I know a lot of people have asked, should they put their dog in training? What type of training should they do? This podcast is going to help you answer that question. Plus, with her virtual academy, time constraint is an issue for most people nowadays, and you're able to train your dog on your own time. There's also some additional benefits that we're going to talk about, but one of the biggest benefits that I see is you're the one training your dog, not a trainer, and you're not taking your dog to a special location where it's going to get used to listening to you in that location and not at your home. So this can really help a lot of different people. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode with Mary Beth. Okay, Mary Beth, before we get into this and everything, talking about the Canine Virtual Academy, what I wanted to do is just get to know you a little bit more, because it sounds like you have a pretty deep knowledge as far as dogs and animal science.
Yes. Well, I live in a small rural town currently in Amish country, Ohio. We have 3 kids, ages 4.5, 2.5, and 1. And we also currently share our home with 2 Labrador retrievers. One is a pet dog. He also does pet therapy. And then we're training an assistance dog for Canine Companions for Independence, hopefully to become a service dog for somebody with a disability. We also have a cat and a coop of poultry. As far as my background, you were asking about my animal background. Always have loved animals from a really young age, actually. My older brother had a kind of negative experience around dogs and was afraid of them, and he would run away when he saw a dog, and I would run towards them, at the age of 2. So before I can even remember, so pretty innate. And I ended up doing my college education at The Ohio State University because they had an animal science program that was pretty diverse and well ranked. And at the time, they were actually just growing a companion animal area of interest, and where you could take some courses in dog and cat behavior or health or, physiology and that kind of thing. So that was kind of where I ended up education-wise, got my bachelor's degree in animal sciences, and then ended up going back to The Ohio State University and getting my master's degree in animal sciences with a focus on puppy development and behavior. And then actually went back to school after that and got my veterinary technician degree. So,
wow. Yeah, I was going to ask, what do you do with a puppy development degree?
Yeah, right. Very fascinating. You answer a lot of questions about dogs, and I actually taught some community college classes in anatomy and physiology just because of it was human, but it was just from the science background that I had, I was able to do that, but couldn't really incorporate a lot of puppy behavior stuff into that. So.
Right, yeah, exactly. As far as being afraid of dogs. So even though I have a Boston Terrier website and everything, love Boston, but I am also afraid of dogs. Even though growing up, my mom had, she even bred some dogs, but we had a bull mastiff, a Dalmatian, a lab, Rottweilers. So I've always been around dogs, but I don't know why. I turned 18. Have been afraid of them ever since, except for Boston Terriers.
Honestly, I think there's a healthy respect. I think I'm lacking in some gene or something that comes with being respectful of some of that. But I really do think there's a lot of innate, whatever, genetic, just like dog behavior, where some people are just cat people or dog people or horse people or whatever. That's there's nothing wrong about that. So. Yep.
And then as far as Canine Virtual Academy, because I came across this on Facebook. I saw your Facebook page.
Yes.
So I've talked to a lot of people that want to do dog training, but there's nothing, at least that I've seen, that offers, kind of like what you're doing, a virtual academy.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Well, so initially when we moved out to the area that we live in currently, which is pretty rural, small town, I think the population is 2,000, I realized that there really weren't very many or any options for obedience classes for people. So I kind of thought, well, that's unfortunate. There's a lot of people that say, oh, I wish I could take classes, or my dog needs training. So I started offering some classes at my husband's clinic. He's a veterinarian. And so I started teaching some classes there, which worked out fine. But then we got pregnant with the 3rd child. And being married to a vet, the schedule is fairly unpredictable. He does a lot of large animal work. So he's out, on call at night, pulling animals.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever read James Harriet or anything like that, but it's hard to have a predictable schedule, and it just got to be really difficult to leave. He would come home from work, and I'd leave 3 toddlers with him so I could go teach class, and we're like, this is not working. He'd have to rearrange his on-call schedule. Yeah. So I stopped teaching. There's another girl that had kind of taken some classes with me and really picked up a lot of stuff. So she was starting to offer some classes, and she kind of took over the traditional classes there at the clinic. And I took a break from that for a while, but I missed it a lot. And dogs have always been a part of my life between raising assistance dogs, and I've taught with assisted and taught a variety of classes previously. And so I just felt like, I really missed that aspect. I really like teaching. I really like teaching when it has to do with dogs. So I kind of started thinking about it and thought, I wonder how many other people are in a similar situation where there aren't a lot of options, where locally they might have to drive 45 minutes or an hour to get to a class, or maybe their life schedule is such that they don't have like one evening a week where they can set aside an hour predictably, to actually go to class. Or, I know for sure that there are situations where people have dogs that just don't do well in a traditional class setting, whether that's dog aggression issues or fear issues, or socialization, a dog that maybe came from a rescue that just has never been in the class environment. And the class environment is really helpful, and socialization is really important, but sometimes that's not the first place you want to start. Like, let's throw them in a class with 6 other dogs. And so that was kind of what started the idea. And I thought, well, I actually posted it on Facebook to some of my friends. I was like, hey, I've got this idea. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. And got a lot of support and encouragement for it. And I thought, well, let's give it a shot. And I always thought, what do I have to lose? If we try it and nobody's interested and it's a flop, I'm not out much other than my time.
Right.
So that was kind of where the idea came from. I thought, well, maybe other people are in a similar situation. And my goal was to provide an opportunity for people to improve or advance training, which I believe increases the bond with a dog when the dog is better trained. And just the process of training that I encourage, which is a very positive experience, really does increase that human-animal bond with the dog. And I wanted to offer something that was flexible, convenient, and also somewhat personalized versus like, this is how we do things, and so this is how it always is. Like, let's try to tailor it to what are your issues and what do you want to work on. And so my unofficial slogan is, you can train your dog in your home on your time.
Yeah, I love it. So because I put down here philosophy of training, and I am not an expert at all whenever it comes to dog training. What type of philosophy then do you use for your training?
And that's a great question, because you hear a lot these days about, all positive, or what do you do? And I like to tell people my big thing, philosophy is that dogs will repeat behaviors with pleasant consequences and avoid those with unpleasant consequences. And I really work hard with my clients to discover what techniques might work best in their situation. So instead of sticking to one, hard, fast philosophy necessarily of, well, I always use positive reinforcement, or I always do this, I say, well, what is your situation? What are your goals for your dog? Do you, in some cases people are like, well, I just don't feel comfortable utilizing correction. Or in other cases, okay, this dog is going to hurt the dog. The dog is going to get hurt, and somebody else is going to get hurt if we don't introduce some sort of negative association. And in my case, I prefer to use something that's going to be humane, safe, and understood by the dog. So one of my common corrections is to use a squirt bottle. Like, okay, if the dog is, biting my hand or barking in the cage a lot, then I'll use a little spray bottle with some vinegar and water. And that's very effective. It's safe, and you're not dragging the dog around by its neck, and things like that. So we utilize, and my other theory is like, I really think it's really, really important to create a positive environment and make training fun, because we know that people don't learn very well in a stressed out environment. Right. And we know that dogs don't learn well in a stressed environment. So utilizing lots of positive reinforcement for training, lots of reward, keeping it positive as much as possible, and making it a fun experience for the handlers and the owners and the dog as well.
Okay. So as far as like the trainings and everything, how does that work? Let's say I come on as a client of yours. Can you kind of just walk me through that process?
Sure. So somebody that's interested in the online classes, the best way is to contact me and say, hey, I'm interested in the classes. Usually people have some questions, how does it work, that kind of thing. And the classes are actually somewhat set up similar to like a standard in-person class. They last for 6 weeks. But the big difference is instead of meeting, for an hour or whatever like you would, there's no scheduled meeting time online. So all the material is uploaded or emailed. There's two options. If you're on Facebook, some people prefer this method. I do private Facebook groups that form a class. So I might have usually 3 to 6 people in a class. And each week, at the beginning of the week, so on Sunday, I upload learning material for the week, which comes in forms of demonstration videos, written material, and then I have some practice suggestions, so things to practice during the week, and then I have assignments that are due back. So usually those are in the form of, turn in, say for the first week, turn in 4 photographs or a video of your dog practicing a sit on 4 different surfaces. So if your puppy is just learning sit, you might do it on linoleum, carpet, gravel, and cement, something like that. But if your dog already knows sit pretty well, you can get creative and, okay, I'm going to have them do it on a table or, on a baby gate and different surfaces to really broaden their confidence and ability to do a sit in a variety of locations. And then another week I'll have a different assignment. Okay, I would like a video, short video of you working on leash walking with the dog, incorporating at least one sit, stay, that kind of thing. And those videos enable me to kind of monitor progress, address any issues. I provide feedback for every assignment that's turned in. I'll comment, and usually it's positive, like, you did it great, perfectly, right on.
Right.
But if there's questions or issues, that way I've seen it in person. And additionally, we found there's kind of been some unexpected benefits. We found that, having assignments like having to take the pictures or get the video, people practice because you want that video to look at least halfway decent by the time you turn it in. So usually it's like their 3rd or 4th try, but in the midst of that, they've practiced, and that's exactly what I want. You're working with the dog, you're, repeating what you're supposed to be practicing and building their confidence and hopefully keeping it fun. So it's become kind of the motivation, to keep it looking good. For people that are not on Facebook, I also offer email correspondence. So it's kind of the same thing. At the beginning of the week, I email the material for that week and the assignments, and it's due the following Monday. So people have 8 days, and they're completely on their own time to review the material, watch the videos, practice, and then turn in the homework. And then that goes on for 6 weeks. So I just keep, each week posting more or sending more, and each week kind of builds upon the last. When I initially started, I just offered a basic obedience and manners course. But since then, I've had some requests for level 2 classes and for puppy preschool. So I've gone ahead and created some curriculum for that and now offer 3 different levels. So depending on the age and background training that the dog has had, we try to determine which class would be best.
Yeah, it's so obviously we're on the Boston Terrier Society podcast and everything, and I've had a lot of people ask about like potty training their Boston. Is that something you would cover in this type of class, or is that?
Yeah. So in the puppy preschool class, I especially cover that because that's kind of focused on puppies ages 7 weeks to about 16 weeks of age. So we actually have a whole subject on that one of the second week. That's kind of a big discussion topic. But in any other class, at any point during the classes, people are welcome to ask questions. Whether they email me privately is fine, or post. The benefit of the Facebook group is if somebody posts something, oftentimes other people have those issues and either haven't asked about it or, whatever, didn't get around to it. And they're like, oh yeah, me too. So there's kind of that benefit. So at any point, even if it's not the subject of one of my, pre-made discussions, I'm happy to talk about something like, okay, if that's an issue. But I do have the basic obedience and manners course each week from week 2 through week 6. I have focus on specific challenging behavior issues or unwanted behaviors that we see. So we talk about jumping and barking and pulling on the leash, and inappropriate elimination is also on there, and just some strategies for addressing that. Things like monitoring water intake and keeping the dog with you and either crating them or keeping them in a smaller area, until they're a little bit more reliable in that. So yes, we definitely address that, and I'm always open to addressing other issues that aren't specifically tailored to the course. So.
Right. Something just popped in my head. Do you have the Facebook group and everything? Do people get to stay in this Facebook group, or is it like a new Facebook group every 6 to 8 weeks?
Yes. So it's a new Facebook group for every class, for every session, and I actually will. If I get currently, I have 20 students enrolled in my 3 classes, and so I'll split it up because I don't want them to get so big that it's overwhelming. By the time you get 6 more than 6 people posting, it's too much for everybody. So I have 2 sections of my level 2 class right now and 2 sections of my basic class and 1 section of the puppy preschool. Once the 6 weeks are up, all the material is posted. Those students have access to that material for however long. They also get emailed that material regardless of whether we're doing just email correspondence or the Facebook. I always will email them because some people find it easier just to print it up and be able to refer to it that way. You can't get the videos printed up, obviously, but they can at least still access those. But then for the next session, I'll start new groups. So I don't add, people aren't continually being added to the groups. They kind of just stay. At the end, I just say, I won't be uploading any more material to this course, but you can access it at any point and review the videos and whatever, everything is there for them to continue access. Because part of my point isn't like 6 weeks. Well, 6 weeks and your dog is not going to be trained. That's I don't have any guarantees of that because 6 weeks is a short amount of time. Right. The real goal is that I would give you the tools that you could take beyond 6 weeks and continue, confidently, comfortably, and in a manner that's fun, continue to work with your dog. And we look for, one of the topics I actually talk about is progress versus perfection, because no dog is perfect and no owner is perfect. So, perfection is not realistic. What are our goals? How can we accomplish them? And what can we do in ways that the dog will understand to make progress? So I really encourage people, that by the end of the 6 weeks, do you feel comfortable continuing to progress with your dog and continuing to train, or do you not? And then, in which case, let's talk some more. So
right. As far as like an ideal client, is there an ideal person that you're looking for, or like a certain breed that might be better with the type of training?
That's a great question. And my answer is anybody. Anybody is the ideal client. Initially, initially when I created the virtual academy idea, I was kind of geared to people with challenging schedules, those that lived far away from classes, or those with dogs that couldn't handle traditional classes very well. But I'm finding that I've had a lot of students who actually are currently attending traditional classes or have attended traditional classes, who are taking my classes and are still enjoying and appreciating them. And I've had several people say, like, these are, I've taken classes for years, that this is the best one I've taken. And one of the things, again, kind of an unknown benefit is, when we take traditional training classes, the dogs learn really quickly that when I walk into the doors of that obedience school or that clinic or wherever the class is being held, this is where I behave. This is school. Like, I know.
That is very true. I didn't think about that.
This is where we train. Yeah. So then you turn around and you go home and the dog acts like the same old dog again. And you hear that complaint a lot of, like, well, they do great here, but as soon as I get home, it's like starting over again. They're still getting into the trash and barking and whatever. And so one of the kind of unexpected benefits here is that the Canine Virtual Academy training takes place in your home, and you are the trainer. Like, you're learning from me, but you're the one working with your dog. So one, the dog is learning to behave at home, which is where they spend the majority of their time and which is usually where people want them to be behaving. And you're learning to be the handler versus, in some traditional classes, the dog trainer can take the dog and make him look really good, but again, you're the owner is the one that's with the dog and needs to be able to handle them. And so we found that has really helped in, like, okay, I can apply this right here at home, and the dog is learning to be trained at home versus the training environment where I behave, and then at home I don't have to, kind of thing.
No, I can totally see that. So my wife and I, we did some DIY behavior training whenever our daughter was first born. And, it helped out a lot, but now pretty much my wife is the alpha. Bella only listens to her. So I know some of the techniques and whatnot, but once the dogs hone in on whoever is in charge, that is it. So I could see them if you go to a training where there's actually somebody there kind of taking your dog and showing them the ropes, where they listen to them and not you.
Right, which isn't really helpful in the grand scheme of, like, what your goals are. So we actually I've had a lot of interest from people with the organization that we raised assistance dogs for. So I tend to have a lot of retrievers just because there are a lot of volunteers that are raising dogs for the organization. But I've actually had a lot of variety of breeds. Had a Cavapoo, Australian Shepherd, Cocker Spaniel. So we've had, even though the retrievers are kind of the dominating breeds just because of the people with the organization, I've definitely had some variety. And there seems to be, I actually had a Papillon, not even a very common dog, but there seems to be, if the people do the work, there's everybody that has done the work and turned in the homework assignments and all that has said that they've made progress and they've been really pleased. Sometimes it's just like any online class where you can sign up and you can choose to review the material and apply it, or you cannot,
Right, yeah.
We're all adults, and that's kind of I can't make anybody do it, but I've been really pleased with the feedback I've gotten from those who have actively participated.
But there's that accountability, too, because you're checking in, with the homework assignments and everything, so that's great.
Right. And that's a part of we really enjoy, I like the Facebook group version because there is, other people there, and there's kind of a camaraderie. Not that I'm opposed, I'm happy to do email correspondence, too, but there's definitely kind of a fun group environment, people sharing and rejoicing in accomplishments together and that kind of thing. So
yeah. So as far as like Boston Terriers and everything, is there is there some type of trigger of when you should train your dog, or is it pretty much as soon as you get a puppy you should look into some type of training?
Yeah, ideally, for socialization benefits, you do want to start early, but of course you're also dealing with a dog that's not fully vaccinated and being really careful about where you take them and that kind of thing. So in the puppy preschool class, I do think that training, so this is kind of where it gets interesting. It's not necessarily teaching obedience commands as much as teaching things like self-control, introducing the concept of self-control and housebreaking and things like that can begin from day one. When you get the puppy, one of the really big things that I encourage people with puppies to do is to think about the future, because when you have a little puppy, they're so cute and innocent for a few minutes and little terrors for a few minutes. But I encourage people to think about, okay, what is it you want that dog to do or not do as an adult? If you don't want them jumping and pawing on you when they're, 20 pounds, right now when it's 6 pounds, it's cute, but you need to start now, set that expectation. It'll be a whole lot easier. I said it's a lot easier to unbreak habits that aren't created than it is to break a bad habit.
Right. As far as the puppy, go ahead.
I was going to say any age, though. I've had dogs that were 5 to 8 years old taking my classes. So they're never too old to make progress, but you're going to, I think, kind of have the biggest impact from a young age, where you can set those expectations while they're young and set the foundation for what you want.
Right. As far as like the puppy's age, is there a certain age, like 4 months, or? As
far as starting, you can start. You can start. 7, 8 weeks. Puppies in breeder homes there are certain things you can start teaching them even, from 5 weeks of age, 6 weeks of age. They can start learning some litter box, holding, like urinating and defecating in specific areas, or learning to sit for petting, that kind of thing. So really, as soon as they go into a home at 8 or 9 weeks of age, you can start. But I think it's important to be realistic at that age. And, we're not going to expect a 8-week-old puppy to hold a 2-minute sit stay or like any of that. That's just not realistic. And even teaching commands at that point, you can, and it's fun and they can learn, but it's more, it's more important that they learn that learning is fun and that they learn, short bouts of self-control. So having them wait for 2 seconds at the door before they go outside, or have them sit and wait for 2 seconds before you let them eat their food, or, little things like that, that really can then build to future training, official training. So, which I think, I guess, as far as that age would be probably around 4 months, where you can really raise that expectation to, you can hold a sit and a down and start walking nicely on a leash beside me, that kind of thing.
Yeah. What we've learned with Bella is consistency too.
Yeah.
After we did all that training, we kind of, let things go for a little while, and then there was some regression.
Yes. They're opportunistic little creatures, aren't they?
Yeah.
So if we don't train them, they'll train us.
Yeah, that's right. And Bella hasn't trained. But not my wife.
They're smart. Bostons are definitely smart.
Yes. So it sounds like, people could benefit from through your training, as well as, the in-person training for the socialization with other dogs. What are some tips as far as when people are looking to hire a dog trainer? Is there any, there's kind of multiple questions, but is there any red flags or credentials they should be looking for, or questions they should be asking?
And that's one thing that I'd like to add here, is that even though I offer the virtual academy option, I am all about the traditional in-person classes. Obviously, kind of like your question, are there things to look for in making sure it's a good trainer and a good class? Yes, you can do a lot more damage going to a bad one, but things to ask, like you asked me, what is your training philosophy? Find somebody that you agree with their philosophy, because you can really mess up your dog or mess up yourself if you go to somebody that you're like, ooh, I don't agree with that. Important to ask what the person's background and experience is. Unfortunately, it's really difficult as far as credentials go because there is no national standard for trainers. There are different credentials you can get based on education, background, experience, that kind of thing. And so people will usually put that, I'm certified through whatever, but there is no national certification. So just because they have all those titles and letters after their name may or may not mean they're a great trainer. And it depends on who they got those through and what philosophy that school taught them. So you have to still be kind of open-minded, even if they have a great background or they seem really like, wow, all those letters after their name, they really seem smart. They got the doctor thing at the beginning or, whatever. So still really important. I think it's really beneficial if you can talk with past clients. If you hey, do you have anybody I can talk to that's taking your classes, so you can get some feedback from that. And if you can, attend some classes before you even sign your dog up. So,
some shadow
if you have
classes.
that opportunity. What's that?
Like some shadow, like auditing a class in college.
Exactly. It may be even just one class, but if you say, hey, would it be okay with you if I could? If somebody says that they're not okay with that, that would raise a red flag for me. Like, oh, really?
Okay.
If somebody tells you that there is only one right way to train a dog, that would be a concern to me because, there's definitely not only one right way to train people, and every dog is so different, and breeds are different, and everybody's life situation is different. So I definitely think that if somebody tells you there is only one right way, that they're stuck in, and maybe that would work for your dog, but I don't think it would work for every dog. Somebody that guarantees results, it makes me a little nervous because, again, dogs aren't perfect, and I don't think you can guarantee that. And then also somebody who would take the dog away to train it before you've established a trusting relationship. So I'm not totally opposed to, I think they call it board and trains, or, people a trainer taking the dog and training it. That's not all bad. But if you haven't established a relationship or you feel like you can really trust that person, I would be very hesitant to just, well, you're a trainer and your dogs are really good, so here, have my dog for a week and bring him back. And again, running into the same issue we talked about, they can make the dog look really good, but you still have to take it home and have it listen to you. So
my wife and I watch a lot of Susan Milan.
Yes.
Okay. Well, as far as I don't want to talk specific prices because I know prices can change and everything. But is the group one, would that be I don't want to say cheaper, but at lower cost in the price?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, the pricing currently is the same. It's just based on the class that you sign up for. Eventually, I suppose that could change if I get enough. Obviously, the email correspondence is slightly more work, but not everything. The way technology is these days, I'm able to kind of set everything up in advance to download at a certain time, or I still reply to what's posted, in real time. So that's usually within 24 to 48 hours. But whether it's through the Facebook group or email correspondence, the pricing is the same.
Okay. And then go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, and it's pretty reasonable at this point because it's a small business getting started out. Compared to your traditional classes, it's still a bit cheaper than that at this point.
Right, yeah. So. And I'll be sure to include a link to the prices and everything in the show notes. That way people can just go right there and check it out. So at this time, I'm assuming you're taking on new clients?
Yes. At any point. I offer, my classes run as sessions, so just kind of for the sake of my sanity and kind of keeping everything running smoothly, I do them in 6-week sessions. So they start at a certain date, they end on a certain date, and then I start up the next session. So my next session will begin February 17th, and at this point I'm planning to kind of continue pretty much every 6 weeks or so after that. Always available to take questions or names for upcoming class sessions. So, somebody says, hey, I'm not going to be available in February, but, maybe in March or April would be better. Say, hey, I'll take your name and I'll be happy to contact you closer to that time and see if you're still interested. And people can contact me via my Facebook group page or by Instagram or now by email at my Canine Virtual Academy email address.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll put those all in the show notes. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share? Or
let's see if there's. Well, I was going to add, if you check out my Facebook page, it's not just for those that are interested in the classes. I do post a Fact or Fiction Friday every Friday, or a Fantastic Feature Friday. Yep. So usually just kind of discussions about dog training, dog behavior, dog health. Sometimes I'll do a feature Friday where I'll pick one of our students and talk about the student and show a video or a picture of some of their accomplishments. And then on the last Tuesday of the month, I usually post a training tip Tuesday. So even if you're not interested in the classes, if you want to come over and like the page and follow it and join into some of the discussions, people are always welcome to do that. I try not to be super pushy because I am turned off enough by other people that are always pushing. So I figure if you want it, you'll contact me. If you don't, that's fine. But let's talk dogs. We like to talk dogs.
Yes.
So.
Okay. Yeah, I'll include that as well. And I literally just liked the Facebook page. So perfect.
Awesome. Well,
thank you for listening to today's episode. I'll be sure to include in the show notes all the links to Mary Beth, as well as her email. If you have any questions about her training program, feel free to reach out to her. She'll be more than happy to help and answer all your questions. And I will talk to you guys later. Thanks. Bye.